Annabel, excuse the personal question, but are you a mum by any chance?
Yes, I am a mum.
Okay, so this is very relevant to you. The NHS, amid a rare outbreak of common sense, amid this sort of saturation wokery that seems to infest our health service, has declared today that it is very important that if kids want to transition or identify as a different gender at school, you know, if boys want to be girls or vice versa, that the parents are informed. And incredibly, I'm not sure what the numbers are now, but I know at one point there were hundreds of schools in this country that had a policy that if a pupil wanted to identify as a different gender, they wouldn't tell the parents. So the kids would, if you like, live within their biological gender at home, come to school and then be allowed to transition to the other gender. I think it's incredible. I mean, the NHS is quite right saying this should not be allowed unless parents know about it. But I think it's incredible that it is still going on, that schools take it upon themselves to allow kids to identify as different genders without telling their parents. That's a scandal, isn't it?
I think it is a scandal, though I do have some sympathy for some schools, some head teachers, some staff, because they've been waiting for months now, Kevin, for the government to issue some guidance, which they were promised back in July, and the can, you know, as is typical of this Tory government, was kicked further down the road. And schools are worried that they're on the line here, that, you know, if they don't respect the gender that a child says they identify as, or if they do and they pass the information on to the children, the parents aren't very accepting, and there could be some controversy around it, some issue around it, that the schools are the ones who maybe are at risk of legal action or at risk of at least very heavy criticism. So what is urgently needed is guidance for these institutions. And like you say, it's welcome that the NHS have actually come out and tried to offer some, and that they have come down on the side of common sense. Now, you know, I'd question why it is that our healthcare service is feeling that it needs to step in and do a job that really ought to be filled by the government. And like you say, this is, you know, the NHS is an institution that has just created 3 new woke departments employing around, I think, 250 people, you know, as directors for lived experience. And I can only try and guess what those directors for lived experience spending their time doing, but nonetheless, there's obviously been this significant rise in schools letting children change their pronouns, change their uniforms when they come onto the campus, and this is highly problematic. You asked at the start whether I was a parent. I am, and I think, you know, all parents would want to know if their children identified as a different gender, and would want to be informed if they were living a slightly different life, perhaps, to the one that they're living at home, to know that things are being concealed from them so that they can provide all the support necessary. And I think the government has been reticent to provide this guidance because it's worried that it might contravene the Equality Act. But I would urge them to go ahead and do it and see what happens, because it'll force the Labour Party to take a position. And like we've talked about, it's good if the Tories are able to put some clear blue water between themselves and Labour, force Labour out into the open to take a position on certain issues, but it will also take the fight to the trans extremists potentially in the courts if necessary, and force them to show their true colours. So to me, there's not really any downside to the Tories issuing this guidance.
I totally agree. The issue here is who raises children. Is it parents, mums and dads, or is it the state? And I would contend the answer to that is obvious. It should be parents.